Okay, so first off, I just want to start by introducing ourselves. I'm Jackson.
I'm Krista. I'm Emily.
I'm Gregory.
Today, our topic, question is, in our research, we will explore the idea of HIV in both young adults and adults. So the title of our author and main claims. So my first source is the effectiveness of HIV prevention, social marketing with injecting drug users, and the authors are Gibson, Zane, Cassidy, Pappas, Mitchell, and Keigles. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So in this article, some of the main concepts we explore is how social marketing can help prevent people from getting infected with HIV. Another main concept we find in this article is how campaigning, using posters, and even seeing ads on television can help many individuals realize how serious HIV is. Lastly, we see in this article different strategies that we can use to market HIV so that others can become knowledgeable in this subject. So basically what this is saying, whenever you're driving your car around town and you see billboards of different things that say don't do this or you'll get HIV, it's just basically marketing HIV itself. And so it's saying that just seeing it around everywhere you go, it's helping impact so many people, just being aware of how common and how fast this is growing. So for my second article, which is HIV Services for a New Generation, the authors are Richard K. Thomas and Deborah Bartelli. So typically when you think of marketing, you think of someone trying to market a product to attract a customer. In this article, we see that marketing plays a different role in HIV. So basically what this is saying is most times when you market a product, you're trying to make a profit, you're trying to gain either money or something from marketing it. But in this article, it's a whole different role, because this article states when marketing HIV, the goal is not to be profitable, but it is to raise awareness about the disease and how it can be prevented. We also see that marketing is a major way to keep funding going so that we can get more research, so that we can help get better techniques and different ways to help make HIV better, not better, but more treatable and preventable. This article also talks about how a major part of the population is young adults and adults that are being affected by this disease. So it's mainly us, our age people that are being infected by HIV. So how is each source arranged and organized? So my first source, in this article, the information is arranged in headings, subheadings, and even tables to help present this information in the text. We also see the text is very organized, and it allows the reader to move through the text smoothly so that the reader can understand all of the information very easily.
That's verse 1?
Yes, ma'am. And this is effectiveness of HIV prevention, social marketing with injecting drug users. So my second source, which is HIV Services for a New Generation, we see that this information is arranged in headings and subheadings. Just being the subheadings, what they did is they bolded the subheadings very big so that you know exactly what each part of the paragraph is going to be about. We also see about organizing the text this way, it allows the reader to flow through the text easily as well. So seeing the bolded subheadings, you're allowed to see what you want, what paragraph you want to read about. If you just have to scan over it, you can go straight to the paragraph that the subheading refers you to. So how is this information presented? So in my first source, the information in this text is presented in a way to catch the audience's attention. There's a lot of pictures in the text that grab the reader's eye immediately without even reading any of the text. The article also uses bullets, tables, and secondary research to present the information in a way that is easily to understand. For my second source, HIV Services for a New Generation, the information in the text is presented in a way that is presented in a way to present the information clearly and professionally. There is a picture in the text that catches the reader's attention, but its primary focus is to bold the subheadings so that you can find the text clearly and begin to find the information in the text that you want to view as the reader. So what are the discourse conventions and how do they teach the reader about the values of the field? So for my first article, the discourse convention in this article, effectiveness of HIV prevention, social marketing with injecting drug users, we see a bunch of secondary research which helps the reader get a better understanding from multiple people in the field and not just one person. This eliminates any of the biased opinions that you might think that if it was just one person talking about the subject. So for my second source, HIV Services for a New Generation, the discourse conventions in this article we see mostly in the text is from primary research. This discourse convention teaches the reader the goal of marketing HIV and how different it is to spread the different ways to prevent HIV from spreading in young adults and adults of all ages. Lastly, how does each source offer insight into the group presentation? So for my first source, Effectiveness of HIV, in this article, the author offers insight by showing different strategies and ways that help people from getting HIV. It also offers insight by allowing different fields a way to understand how serious HIV is and how fast it is growing. Lastly, we see how the article values different ways to spread awareness about HIV. And for my second source, HIV Services for a New Generation, in this article, the author offers insight by telling the reader the different goals and values of marketing HIV and the different aspects of marketing a normal product and marketing HIV. We also see how it shows the different ways in which HIV can be prevented in adults and young adults by not only in the marketing aspect, but as well as other fields as well.
All right, so just as a refresher, our research topic is exploring the idea of HIV in both young adults and adults. Since my major is education, my research focuses more on students with HIV and HIV education in middle schools and high schools. So on my first slide, I am presenting the titles and main claims of my two sources. My first article's title is Students with HIV/AIDS in School Consideration. This article emphasizes the importance for education professionals to understand all of the factors they must consider for children who are infected with HIV or AIDS, such as how it is transmitted in school-age children, the demographics and incidents, legal issues, medical and psychological issues, special education issues, biases and barriers, school policy, knowledge base, and training level. My second article's title is High School Health Education Teachers' Perceptions and Practices Related to Teaching HIV Prevention. This article's main claims were how individuals between the ages of 13 and 19 years old are especially vulnerable to HIV infection if not educated well. The authors conducted a study to examine high school health teachers' attitudes, perceptions, and instructional practices towards HIV prevention education. My second slide presents the question, how is each source arranged/organized? The authors of my first source only used headings to organize the format of their article, and the authors of my second source used headings and subheadings to arrange the text and tables in their article. So, the next slide discusses the question, how is the information presented? My first source did not have its own primary research to display, and its secondary research did not involve anything other than textual evidence. Therefore, it presented its information through text, citations from secondary research, and lists. My second source presented its information from primary research through text, tables, statistical evidence, and statistical evidence from some secondary research. This slide... Hold on.
Statistics, tables, and text.
Okay. Okay, you got it? Okay. So this slide discusses the discourse conventions and presents the question, what are the discourse conventions and how do they teach the reader about the values of the field? So the discourse conventions in my first source are mainly text and secondary research. These discourse conventions teach the importance of reading and writing in the education world, and the secondary research teaches the importance of learning from other professionals who are credible. The discourse conventions from my second source included text, tables from primary research, and some citations from secondary research. These discourse conventions teach the importance of always seeking to improve educators' skills and the importance of teaching and informing high school students how to handle real-world problems such as HIV. My last slide goes into a little bit of detail about the entire group presentation and asks the question, how does each source offer insight into the group presentation? My first source, Students with HIV/AIDS in School Consideration, presents insight on how schools take infected students into consideration involving confidentiality, physical health, psychological health, and special education. My second source, High School Health Education Teachers, Perceptions and Practices Related to Teaching HIV Prevention, offers insight into the primary research that shows how some health education teachers view HIV prevention and how their personal teaching methods affect their confidence to effectively teach young adults about HIV prevention.
My field is history, so that's what my articles are about. In his article titled The Medicalization of HIV Prevention, New Opportunities Beset by Old Challenges, Ronald Bayer claims that HIV prevention has come a long way since the virus was first identified in the U.S. in 1981. However, the stigma surrounding HIV and a lack of programs like educational programs and just money in general are proving to set back all of our progress. My second article, in HIV-1, a very modern pandemic, Michael G. Cordingley claims that HIV is a successful zoonosis, which is a virus that has jumped from animals to humans. He goes on to explain the history of HIV in the U.S., how and when it jumped from primates to humans, the anatomy of HIV, the history of HIV prevention, and other stuff. How is each source organized? Cordingley's book chapter is organized into different sections. Each section has its own subheading which describes the topic Cordingley is going to talk about. A new disease and a new virus, anatomy of HIV-1, and medicine at the virus host interface are just 3 examples of subheadings in the text. Unlike Cordingley's book chapter, Bayer's article isn't organized with subheadings. Bayer's article really isn't organized in any way. There's no subheadings, and it isn't a question and answer type style. It kind of follows the form of most historical text or just history textbooks. It goes in chronological order. Bayer clearly states that first HIV prevention was centered around the idea of identifying counsel, which consisted of identifying those with HIV and those at risk of getting it, and then counseling them on how to be more safe. Soon after AZT, the first antiretroviral against HIV was developed. Then in 1996, there was highly active antiretroviral therapy, which is still used today and is a combination of a lot of antiretroviral drugs taken by people who are HIV positive. And then Bayer ends with the recommendation of PrEP in 2014 by the CDC. Okay, how is information presented? Bayer's article and Bayer and Cordingley's articles rely on secondary evidence to support their claims. In particular, both authors cite medical journals. I included 2 quotes on the PowerPoint to show what I mean. The quote on the left is from Bayer's article, where he states that, quote, "The CDC moved formally in May 2014 to recommend the use of PrEP. You should consider PrEP if you are a person who sometimes has sex without using a condom, especially if you have a sex partner who is HIV infected." For those of you that don't know, PrEP, or pre-exposure prophylaxis, is an antiretroviral medication that greatly reduces a person's chance of getting HIV. If you use it with a barrier, like a condom, your chances are reduced by up to 92%, but like the CDC said, you can obviously use it without one. The quote on the right is from Cordingley's book chapter. He cites Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report, which is an epidemiological report published by the CDC. The report from 1981 documents the first sign of HIV in the U.S. Cordingley explains that the first paragraph of the report read, In the period October 1980 to May 1981, 5 young men, all active homosexuals, were treated for pneumonia in Los Angeles, California. 2 of the patients died.